These are some of the myths to go with Pluto. I'm talking about this Pluto as this archetype because I think it really helped to understand what it means now that Pluto is in Aquarius. But this is one of my favorite myths to do with Pluto. This is Hercules. There's a bit of a brutish hero, but there he is. And he is given 12 sacred tasks. And one of his tasks is to defeat the Hydra. Now, the Hydra is a 9-headed monster that lives in a dark swamp under a great big green cloud. And every night the Hydra comes out and it's terrorizing the local villages. So Hercules has the task of going to defeat the Hydra. So he takes his sword and his club and he wades into the swamp until he's confronted with the Hydra. And he fights the Hydra in his normal way because he's a boy and he's chopping all the heads off the snakes. And then he realizes that wherever he cuts a head off the snake, 2 more grow in its place. So this monster is not going to be defeated in the normal way. And so he's having a horrible time with this venomous monster in the dark, in the swamp. And in the end, the solution is that he gets right down into the mud. And he gets his hands underneath the Hydra and he lifts it up out of the swamp and lifts it up into the light of day. And when the light of the sun hits the Hydra, it all dies. And this is a perfect image for Pluto. Is like, there's, something is calling me from the unconscious, from the shadow. Whoa, don't like the look of that. That looks pretty toxic, pretty venomous. And the only thing to do is to get in there, get hold of it, and lift it into the light of the sun, lift it into the light of consciousness. And this is very much the journey of Pluto. The first thing is confronting something that looks pretty monstrous and bringing consciousness to it and bringing light is the transformational process that puts us back in touch with our power.
Welcome to Caritas Consciousness Project. I'm Gloria Coelho, and Caritas is dedicated to promoting the evolution of consciousness, both individually and collectively, as the key to individual growth and also to global healing. We draw from a wide assortment of leading-edge studies in science, consciousness studies, spirituality, healing, and philosophy. And in addition to our online presentations with guest speakers, we offer classes and study groups also online on Zoom. And we have over 100 video recordings on our YouTube channel. One of these days I should count them. It might be approaching 150, I'm not sure. And so our YouTube channel is Caritas Consciousness Project. They're also accessible on our website, through our website on the video library page. And our website is caritascenter.org. As a nonprofit organization, we rely on the support of our members and donors to keep Caritas going. So if you'd like to support this program, you can make a donation or become a member on our website, caritascenter.org. And now let me introduce our speaker for today, returning and favorite Rebekah Hirsch, astrologer. She has been an astrologer for over 30 years. And in recent years, her understanding of astrology has shifted to a profound experience of the planetary archetypes, both as elemental currents comprising a person's human energy field, and also as a powerful living presence in the universal field. Rebekah is an advanced level graduate of the Barbara Brennan School of Healing in the USA, as well as a professional archetypal astrologer, having trained with Liz Green and Howard Sasportas at the Center for Psychological Astrology in London. She's also a trainer and facilitator of the transpersonal work known as voice dialogue. She lives in London, where she runs a private practice as an energy healer and astrologer. And her book, Charting the Soul, Astrology, Characterology, and the Human Energy Field, available on Amazon, published in 2016, is a synthesis of archetypal astrology and the Brennan approach. Rebekah runs her own Charting the Soul workshops based on the themes from her book. She regularly gives lectures at the Astrological Lodge of London and other astrology groups, as well as teaching voice dialogue. Rebekah is also a visionary painter and beautiful painter, I think. And if you noticed a couple of, I think there's only one this time on the flyer, painting that's kind of a narrow column on one of the slides. That is her painting. It's beautiful. So welcome, Rebekah. Thank you so much for being with us today from all the way from England.
Always a pleasure. So Gloria and I were just noticing that Mars is just retrograding over the ascendant at the moment, and it's trining Neptune, so very Neptunian energy around. And we're going to be talking about all of that.
Good day for a daydream.
Yeah. Yes, we are going to be talking. I'm just going to get my screen up then.
Okay. I always think of Mars, I always think of Neptune as something we don't give enough energy to, a part of us, a part of our psyche.
Yep.
That
lips away. Yeah.
That, our left brain just takes over and is so emphasized in our society. And Neptune, I would say, rules more right brain stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Definitely. Yeah. And I will be talking quite a lot about Neptune. Well, let's jump straight in. So here we are at the beginning of 2025.
Yeah, could you explain your title, A Wave, Not a Circle?
Well, that's going to be the second half, but it's...
Oh, okay.
No, everybody, all the astrologers are talking about this year, 2025. I know we're always saying it's an unusual year, but it really is. This never happens, that all of the outer planets from Jupiter outwards, but in particular, that slow-moving planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are changing signs. And just on the most superficial level, that means change. Something's changing. There's a big shift. Pluto will be in Aquarius for 19 years. Neptune will be in Aries for 13 years. This is a big shift. It's not like when the sun or the moon changes sign. And Saturn also is entering 0 degrees of Aries, and Jupiter will be entering 0 degrees of Cancer. So what's happening is a lot of astrologers are talking about this. It's quite exciting. This really never happens.
Yeah.
That the outer planets, the slow-moving outer planets, all change together. It's a big wave. It's a kind of tsunami of change. And one of the ways to try to understand the significance of a big planet moving into the next sign is to look back in history and thinking, well, what was happening the last time Pluto entered Aquarius, the last time that Neptune entered Aries. And the idea of the wave, not a circle, came to me because I do believe in progress. I don't think we're just going round in circles. I don't think history really repeats itself. You can get information by looking back to the past, but actually, I think, what's my next slide? Not to want to be depressing, but we're in very difficult times, I think. Very challenging. When I talk to my American friends, a lot of them are very, very worried. And in the world, and and in the Middle East, and in Africa, and in the Ukraine, there are very challenging things happening across the world. I know you've had the terrible wildfires in Los Angeles, but on the bigger picture, there's opportunity to be afraid. And then we look at all these planets that are bringing change, and it's like, what can we hope for? And I think we can hope for a lot. But I don't want to gloss over the difficulties and the risk of descending into some kind of gloom or despair about the way things are going. So I just wanted to emphasize that there changes here. And I don't want to be stupid about it. I don't want to be naive, and pretend that everything is hunky-dory and it's all wonderful. I think one of the things we are called to do is to confront what the collective of the human race. What are these choices that we are making? What's happening? What's really happening? And I think a lot of what I want to say today is, that what a lot of people are saying is we are in a time of enormous change, enormous transition, and not to lose hope. And this, for example, this is this summer in the August, and I think this is a really, I know not everybody can read a chart, but we have a grand trine in air, with Mars in Libra, Uranus in Gemini, and Pluto in Aquarius. And the element of air has to do with the mind, and it has to do with thinking, and it has to do with innovation and ideas. I'll talk about these signs more further on in the talk. But this is a grand trine. So this is a positive flow of thinking and communicating. That the air signs are about ideas and communication, and there's also as well as the grand trine. So here's the grand trine. Here's Pluto in Aquarius. If you look at the little pointer, here's Uranus in Gemini. Here's Mars in Libra, and the ascendant in Libra. And over here, bang opposite the ascendant, we've got Neptune just at the beginning of Aries. Saturn and Neptune conjunct at the very beginning of Aries, opposite this Libra. And that makes it a kite. And it's a little bit like a bow and arrow. And, Gloria and I are just talking about Neptune. It gives a lot of importance to Neptune, and I will get on and talk about that. First of all, everybody knows about Pluto. If you go on any social media, oh, Pluto's in Aquarius, age of Aquarius, what does it mean? So my way of coming to astrology is to come through the archetypes. So rather than me totally explaining to you what I think the meaning of Pluto and Aquarius is, it's for everybody to get a sense of what Pluto is about. And then we'll look at what Aquarius is about. And it has really struck me recently that people need to come to they do anyway, come to their own vision of what it means when Pluto enters Aquarius. How do those two energies work together? What is it going to mean when Neptune enters Aries? People to have a personal sense of Aries and their own sense of Neptune. So Pluto is one of the big meanies of astrology. The other one is Saturn. We don't like Pluto. He's the lord of death. He's the king of the underworld. He's about endings. He's also about power. And And again, I don't want to be naive about this. Sometimes when a person has in their own chart a big transit from Pluto, it can be a very, very difficult time. It doesn't just, it can mean the death of a loved one, a life partner, something like that, but it can be something in your career comes to an end. It can be a relationship comes to an end. You know, Pluto brings endings, but he also rules birth. But in the first place, something happens that you might not have chosen. And very often in this world, those things that are taken away from us, then something new is born. And that is very much the energy of Pluto that is also rules birth. Where are we? So for sure, he can be the angel of death. And as I say, that can be in any area of life, but it's also birth. I remember when my eldest son had Pluto going into his 7th house in his chart, and I was, ooh, what's going to happen? And what happened was that they got pregnant and they had my granddaughter. They had a baby. Birth, rebirth. You know, when if we're talking about the loss of something, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a career prospect, the loss of a dream, then out of the ashes comes the phoenix. This is also Pluto. It's the later stages of a Pluto cycle. Something is born, and the metamorphosis, if you can see that part of the slide, Pluto is the most transformational of all the planets. So, you know, it comes with a punch. It's often unexpected, something that you hadn't seen coming, you know, is, whoa, that's gone. And then out of the rubble, you know, something new is born, and it's usually something much better, much stronger. You know, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger, but Pluto really is immensely strengthening. Pluto was discovered at the just before the splitting of the atom and the dropping of the first atomic bomb. Also, Pluto goes with psychology, but in the first place, Pluto is about power. And you know, when you look at your own chart, where is Pluto? And what's happening with Pluto in my chart, and who has the power? And the way that our society works is that we very often do power over others, or we are the victim of somebody else dominating us with their power. And the authentic power that Pluto wants you to have is your own birthright of your own source of power, you know, third chakra, base chakra, you know, the chakra in the belly. It's like, I am a unique facet of life, of the universe. Have come to incarnate on this earth to fulfill a task that nothing and nobody else in the universe can fulfill. So where is my power, my own authority, you know, creative power to fulfill my own destiny? And Pluto rules things like the bio, you know, it's not a rational, he's not a left brain planet. It's about it goes a lot with the body and with the instincts, your gut reactions, your non-rational gut reaction, emotional reaction, but also really going away from consciousness to all the functioning of the body, this miracle of the body, you know, where we breathe and our hearts pump and the blood is moving around the system and the nerves are transmitting their little messages and the muscles are flexing. And all that happens without our consciousness. It's absolutely astonishing when you think of the billions and billions of things that are going on in your body every minute, every breath you take. And that's the area of Pluto, because Pluto rules the unconscious. You know, Pluto goes into the unconscious and brings stuff that we didn't know about into the consciousness. But what it shows us is that in our beautiful little light of consciousness, there is a vast unconscious beyond that, and that is Pluto. So it's you know, there's so much power and so much to be aware of with Pluto. And I think one of the key things with Pluto because all the planets are seeking consciousness. There is no such thing as a planet that's out to get you. But what Pluto does is it goes for the shadow. And the shadow is simply all those things that we have pushed out of consciousness because they were too difficult for us to deal with at the time. Often in childhood, we push things away because they're not welcomed and accepted in the family. This is the Jungian psychological side of astrology. And things, aspects of self sink away into the unconscious. And they don't do well. If they are authentic parts of our nature, they're not happy being pushed into the unconscious. And the shadow work, what happens with a transit of Pluto, when Pluto is active in your life, is it goes into the unconscious and it brings you a piece of shadow. Have a look at this. So, yeah, very much, going with the unconscious. This image here is Pluto as the puppet master, because that is what happens in our left brain patriarchal society. We see Pluto operating as the puppet masters who have power over, who seek power by dominating others. And then the flip side of that is people who feel disempowered and depressed and despairing because they can't get hold of their own authentic power to live the life the way that their spirit is asking them to. I do like this image of the Minotaur. The Minotaur is a monster in Greek mythology. He had the body of a man but the head of a bull, and he lived off human flesh. So they built, this was in Crete, they built a giant labyrinth, and they put the Minotaur in the heart of the labyrinth so that it couldn't get out. And every now and then they would feed it innocent victims. And eventually Theseus came, and he, with the help of Ariadne, he attached the thread to the beginning of the labyrinth, followed, kept unwinding the thread, found his way to the heart of the labyrinth, killed the Minotaur, and well, that was the way that the Greeks resolved things. They killed things. But this image of the labyrinth and the Minotaur, this is I think it's a powerful image for the way that the subconscious works. Something gets pushed out of consciousness, something gets pushed away. And in voice dialogue terms, we call it demonic. It becomes demonic. If it's your anger, if it's your vulnerability, if it's your ability to tell the truth, if it gets pushed into the labyrinth, pushed into the unconscious, and it turns demonic, and it becomes something that this is, where is it? Shame. This is a word that goes with Pluto, that when we have pushed aspects of ourself into the unconscious, then we feel ashamed of them. People can feel ashamed of their own light, of their own beauty, of their golden light. People can feel ashamed of their anger or their vulnerability, or they can be ashamed of it. Anyway, so these are all things to do with Pluto, that things go out of consciousness. I'll come back to talk about
Carl Jung said, whatever part of you do not like will become hostile to you.
And it really does.
Yeah.
Then you meet people
and that's
who are hostile to you, and they're carrying that. They're carrying your projection of whatever it is. It's pretty complex.
Mm-hmm.
And the shadow is very big. I mean, what I mean is you don't have to worry about, I haven't got hold of my shadow, because it's a life task to keep going into the unconscious, to keep going beyond what is known, and to bring, the hero's journey, to go into the unknown and meet with whatever you encounter there and bring something back, bring bits of consciousness back. And that is the journey of Pluto, and you don't have to do it in a week. These are some of the myths to go with Pluto. I'm talking about this Pluto as this archetype because I think it really helped to understand what it means now that Pluto is in Aquarius. But this is one of my favorite myths to do with Pluto. This is Hercules, who's a bit of a brutish hero, but there he is. And he is given 12 sacred tasks. And one of his tasks is to defeat the Hydra. Now, the Hydra is a 9-headed monster that lives in a dark swamp under a great big green cloud. And every night the Hydra comes out and it's terrorizing the local villages. So Hercules has the task of going to defeat the Hydra. So he takes his sword and his club and he wades into the swamp until he's confronted with the Hydra, and he fights the Hydra in his normal way because he's a boy, and he's chopping all the heads off the snakes, and then he realizes that wherever he cuts a head off the snake, 2 more grow in its place. So this monster is not going to be defeated in the normal way. And so he's having a horrible time with this venomous monster in the dark, in the swamp. And in the end, the solution is that he gets right down into the mud, and he gets his hands underneath the Hydra and he lifts it up out of the swamp and lifts it up into the light of day. And when the light of the sun hits the Hydra, it all dies. And this is a perfect image for Pluto. Is like, there's, something is calling me from the unconscious, from the shadow. Whoa, don't like the look of that. That looks pretty toxic, pretty venomous. And the only thing to do is to get in there, get hold of it, and lift it into the light of the sun, lift it into the light of consciousness. And this is very much the journey of Pluto. The first thing is confronting something that looks pretty monstrous, and bringing consciousness to it and bringing light is the transformational process that puts us back in touch with our power. The other stories that we've got Medusa, who has a gaze very similar, really. Something from the dark, something that she's very wounded. Medusa, she's had a horrible time. She's been turned into a monster with snakes for hair. Along comes Perseus and chops her head off, and that, but let's go on to the next slide, because I think it's here. No, this one. One of the things that happens, if you know the myth of Medusa with her snakes of hair and her face that turns people to stone, and the hero Perseus comes along, and he has to, he's helped by the goddess Athena, he's got her magic sword and shield. He doesn't look directly at the face of the Medusa. He looks holds up the shield as a mirror and chops off the head. And that's the end of Medusa. And as he's running away with the head, he looks back, and out of the dead body of the Gorgon, rises Pegasus, the winged horse. And it's like saying, this is, Pluto saying, something is trapped, locked up in the shadow. Something beautiful has been, sent down to the underworld. And this wonderful image of freedom. It's as though this is the true spirit of Medusa is finally free to soar up into the sky. She's liberated from her horrible life as a monster. So I hope that gives you some feeling for the kind of drama that Pluto brings. Pluto means riches, which is the root of the word plutocracy. And, some of these images of, move this, can I move this? Yep, go back. Of the buried treasure. Doesn't look like a whole bunch of fun to head down into, let's go this way. There we go. Into the underworld. And then what you find there, like in Lord of the Rings, when Bilbo goes down to confront the dragon, there are all these riches, these buried riches. There's some, psychological, spiritual gold that has been buried alive in the underworld. And Pluto gives us a big push, get in there, down into the underworld, and and then we find, you know, like Aladdin's cave. It's full of riches. And I love this image at the end, the lapis philosophium. This is from the Alchemists. But basically what happens is the beginning of the Pluto transit, everything's a bit frozen, everything's a bit stuck. We don't want to think about what's down in the shadow. And then you have to confront something, comes up out of the shadow, some monster, some demon is there. We deal with it, we bring it into consciousness, and at the end, when the Pluto moves on, what is being created is this core light of this beautiful stone of the soul, the lapis philosophium. Something has emerged from unconsciousness and taken its rightful place in your consciousness. Okay, so how are we doing for time? Aquarius. So now Pluto is in Aquarius, and just to talk a little bit more, go back, about Pluto. Just to talk about Pluto in Capricorn, because that is the sort of epoch that has come to an end. Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008, and it finally left Capricorn in November last year. And it's now, 0 or 1 degree of Aquarius. And if we think back to 2008, the first thing that happened within weeks or days even of Pluto entering Capricorn was the financial crash that changed everything. Because Capricorn has to do with money, civilization, the law, banks, finances, police, politics, everything to do with the way we run our civilization. And boy, have we had a journey of Pluto through Capricorn. First of all, the financial banking crash, which, don't know if we're really recovered from it yet. We had things like the Harvey Weinstein scandal and the Me Too movement. It's like suddenly the discovery that a lot of powerful celebrities had been having unacceptable, sexual shenanigans with young people, so Me Too, the prevalence of a sort of an abusive attitude towards women, towards the feminine. We had the death of George Floyd and the surging rise of Black Lives Matter. We've had, there's tragedies of mass shootings. We had, I remember when Pluto first got into Capricorn was when we had the Deepwater Horizon scare, when they drilled a huge, very deep, the deepest ever drilling for oil in the Gulf, and then it went awry, and it was like, well, they weren't sure that they would ever be able to stop it. These are very Pluto, these are all things in Pluto. Now, that's, these are the kind of things that Pluto brings into consciousness. And here we are now with Pluto in Aquarius.
Could I interject something about Pluto and Capricorn? Since Capricorn represents, among other things, authority, right? Yes. And Pluto represents power. Pluto and Capricorn, all of the things that you just mentioned, the common denominator was abuses of power.
Absolutely.
Right. And so one of the things that Pluto does is it dredges up the shadow in whatever sign it enters. It dredges up the things, the shadow of the things that sign represents, so that they can be redeemed, because we can't redeem something until we see it, right? So it shows us raw abuses, because those are the things that need redemption.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So now Aquarius.
Yay, Aquarius. Well, I think this is right away, Pluto right at the beginning of Aquarius. And I think one of the things that straight away that we're confronting is this burgeoning growth of technology. You know, the anxiety about, you know, the wonder of technology, the wonder of mobile phones, the wonder of computers, the great gifts that they bring, because they do. And don't think that we're going to go back to a time without them, because the genie is out of the bottle. Well, these things are here and we have to come to terms with them. But what is happening is that our technological, scientific left brain advances way outstrip our ability to manage things with compassion and even with common sense. You know, we really seem to have lost our way to a large extent with all the shenanigans that are happening on social media at the moment, with very, very rich, powerful men, the plutocracy, who are able to kind of make anything that they want happen because they have so much power and so much wealth. And I'm talking about Elon Musk here. And then getting up to all kinds of, and Zuckerberg, actually, Facebook, he's just said we're not going to have any checks on Facebook about authenticity.
More fact check.
Yeah.
Fact checking.
Yeah, no more fact checking. That's right. And this is Pluto in Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
Because over here, we got the Terminator, and one of our worst fears is a future in which there's a sort of robot war, or we're taken over by technology, or we're taken over by something or someone, that we lose our individual power, and that maybe the machine's turning against us and all that kind of thing. So these are just some of the nightmares that people will speak of with the satellites, all the satellites that are orbiting the Earth, and we're very, very vulnerable. So I think that, straight off at the beginning, Pluto in Aquarius, and suddenly we're confronted, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How can we legislate about this? Can we, and are we even going to be allowed to? Can we get past the incredible power of the people, the plutocrats who are running these things? That's one of the things with Aquarius. What else have we got in Aquarius? Well, all right, I will say this. Aquarius is a very positive, hopeful sign. It's optimistic, and it looks to the future. Aquarius rules astrology. It's looking to the future. It's visionary. What is ahead of us?
And humanitarian.
And the humanitarian, absolutely. And the ideal of all of us evolving. And it's a very egalitarian sign. It's no point. Aquarius doesn't like it that, such a small number of people have got all the power and the wealth, and there are all these people starving and dying and wars. And so Aquarius doesn't like that. Aquarius is egalitarian. And of course, the negative of that is totalitarianism, when egalitarianism is imposed by a totalitarian, scary, authoritarian government, which is Aquarius goes with revolution. And if you think back to the discovery of Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius, it goes with the American Revolution when they freed themselves from the British, and it goes with the French Revolution. But if you think of the French Revolution, it started very idealistic, because there was, just as we have in our times, horrible wealth inequality, the aristocrats having unlimited wealth and the poor people dying of starvation. And so the peasants rose up, and the revolution happened and executed all the aristocrats. And then it turned into a bloodbath. And I think if we're talking about, I haven't really got a slide about this, I don't think. I haven't. If we think about Aquarius, it's a very mental sign. And so with the Russian Revolution, with the French Revolution, you get a bunch of idealists who want a fairer world. We all want a fairer world. We want, you know, a more humanitarian, a more just society. And if we are not careful, it goes wrong. Because Aquarius is very mental, and because it's, you know, is so committed to freedom and revolution that in the end it can be, you know, that demonic side comes out and we start killing each other. So that might be one of the shadows of Aquarius. It would be totalitarian imposing of some humanitarian ideal, and then it turning into China, you know, or right, speed up. So this is one of the archetypes that really goes with Aquarius. This is the story, the Greek myth of Prometheus. Back in the ancient Greek times, he was not an Olympian god with Zeus and Hera and those. He was a Titan, but he was the creator of mankind. In some myth, he just scooped up some earth, made the little figures, and Pallas Athena breathed life in us, and that was the beginning of the human race. And Prometheus loved the human race, and he went to Zeus and he said, I want to help them. I want to help them to progress. Please, can I give the Olympian fire, the immortal fire, can I give the gift of fire to the human race? And Pluto went, no. Zeus went, no. He wasn't very fond of the human race. He was, you know, maybe asked on a bad day. And then Prometheus had the vision. He goes with the Aquarius. He had with astrology, had the vision of foresight. He could see the future. He knew what was going to happen. Nevertheless, he went ahead one night. He stole the fire from Mount Olympus, went down to Earth and took it down to Earth and taught the human race the use of fire, which meant, you know, the learning how to make metal into knives and pots and how to keep warm. So then Zeus is looking down at the Earth, and I do love it, by the way. This is the statue of Prometheus, which is in whichever
Propeller Center.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the American chart of the 4th of July has the moon in Aquarius. So this vision of an egalitarian, humane, you know, visionary society, it very much goes with America. Anyway, Zeus is there and he looks down on the Earth and he sees all these little fires appearing over the plains of Greece. He realizes what has happened. And he punishes the Prometheus by having him chained to a rock and having his liver pecked out every night by an eagle. And in the morning it grows back because Prometheus is immortal and this is his eternal punishment. And then Zeus goes down to Earth and he goes to Prometheus's brother Epimetheus, who's married to Pandora. And he leaves this box, and Prometheus has said before he goes off to give fire to the humans, don't open the box, you know. And so Epimetheus is trying very hard not to open the box, and young Pandora goes into the room where the box is hidden and opens the lid, and out come all the woes that of society, old age, sickness, strife, envy. So bad news for the human race. So Zeus has now inflicted them with all these woes. Poor Pandora slams the box shut, and then she hears a little knocking from inside, and she opens the lid, and there is the little angel of hope. And hope is one of the essential qualities of Aquarius. You've always got to have hope. You've always got to look to the future. You look to the vision of the future. And this image here goes with this slide about the evolution of consciousness. Not everybody would believe in such a thing as the evolution of consciousness. Yet some grim Capricornian, and they may say, "Oh no, rubbish," just get on with life. But for Aquarius, and for me, and for people on a spiritual path, something is trying to happen. And I think this is Aquarius rules astrology. This is an essential approach to astrology. There's no such thing as a bad chart. There's no such thing as a bad planet. What is happening in this chart? Something wants to come into consciousness. Something wants to evolve. Something wants to get bigger, stronger, clearer. And that is part of the essence of Aquarius. And so when we have Pluto in Aquarius, there will be surprises. I mean, well, we've already had one. My God, this sudden eruption of Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg onto the world stage with their immense wealth and power, and nobody knows how to stop them. Pluto in Aquarius. What are we going to do with our technology? Is the power of technology going to rest in the hands of a few billionaires? Is it going to be used to control us? Negative Pluto, domination and control? Or is it going to become this wonderful gift of that will help us to advance? Because I think it already has. We can already see, certainly we have a lot to be afraid of from mobile phones and the dark web and all that kind of thing. Oh my God, the dark web, that is so Pluto in Aquarius, that there are people out there on the internet, slave trafficking, weapons trafficking, all that is happening. But are we not also reaching immense benefits? Gosh, what Zoom did for us in the COVID epidemic, how we've all learned to communicate on that level. And there's much, much more, the information that is always available to us. We're not walking in ignorance like perhaps people were in the 20th century when Pluto was discovered and the descent into fascism. We can see what is happening. We have a choice about which, bit of the internet we go to and where we get information. And so we can hope with Pluto in Aquarius that something is wanting to transform that will bring the visionary aspect into this is from the evolutionary collective, which the gravitational force from the future is love calling forth a new world through communion with one another. This is the kind of ideal of Aquarius. This is something about Aquarius that I honestly think is quite new. That when I was studying astrology, let's try and get rid of this. I can't get. Aquarius is about friendship and about groups, and yet it's a very, very powerful sign. And there didn't seem to be quite enough. And now in the 21st century, I think we see an aspect of Aquarius that was not quite in consciousness up until this century. There's something about the group, the union with the group, where, when 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I among you. That those of us who are on a spiritual path, who are seeking, the divine, who that kind of expanded consciousness, we know that when there's 2 of you, when there's 3 of you, the energy, the power that you can create in a group meditation or group healing goes up and up and up. There's something about the group that create obviously a benign group, when people come together in love and consciousness, that generates a new form of consciousness, really, an expanded form of consciousness, creates a new field of light. And I think this is an aspect of Aquarius that we can really hope, this is our hope, that the coming together of groups, not in the totalitarian way, not in an oppressive way, with respect for the individual, which is really important, respect for each individual, that together we can start to access different dimensions of consciousness. And I don't know that people could have said that about Aquarius in the 20th century, because I don't think they knew. I think this is what is coming, to us in this century. Okay, so maybe before we go on to Neptune, has anybody got a burning question about Pluto in Aquarius? We will have a break in a little while where we can talk about any questions that people have got. Is there anything, Sharon? Yeah. Oh, maybe could you put your video on, Sharon?
And sorry, I've been toggling it on and off, and I want to get to where I can kind of see everybody. I getting back to the technology aspect. What are your thoughts on sort of addictive related behavior as it relates to the devices, the algorithms, the applications themselves? I feel like there's a lot of talk about that around children and teenagers. Yep. But it's also addictive for adults.
Absolutely.
And I think that we haven't as a society acknowledged, and I think like any addiction, just like some of us are more susceptible to alcohol addiction or drug addiction or eating addictions, some of us are more susceptible to device addictions than others. But I do think it's a problem for adults as well as children. And I guess I was just wondering if this slide that you have up now, what your thoughts are on some aspect of us acknowledging, all of us, what these devices are doing to us.
Yeah, they in the UK, they are going to have a review specifically about children. There's even talk about banning smartphones from children under a certain age because of this recognition that it and I was talking about this to my son, who's 34 last night, and he said it affects adults as well. Everybody's attention span is getting shorter, and we've got this burgeoning of neurodivergence, of ADHD and autism, and and again, who knows what that is? But is it a really negative thing, or is it something about our brain waves changing? But whatever it is, we're not very conscious about it. There's no laws, there's no guidelines. There doesn't seem to be a lot of ethics. It just seems to be like very, very much the realm of Pluto. And it is addictive, and it is creating new neural pathways in the brain. Are they beneficial? Are they destructive? They seem destructive, but do we know that? Is there something going to come from this that is beneficial? I don't know. Are we getting rewired to think collectively? It seems awful when the young people are all on TikTok and then they don't do Facebook anymore. What do they do? I don't know what they do. But going from one Instagram, God. Influencers, young people aspiring, just to look good on Instagram instead of aspiring to get a good degree or something. I don't want to put young people down too much because this is their time, this is their wave, this is what they are having to deal with. And if you ever spend any time with young people, they get it in a way that I never will. I will never get it with the fluency with which. So part of me thinks is something good trying to happen in terms of creating a giant brain. Are we creating a massive network of communication so that every human being on the planet can communicate with another? And then, yes, Pluto and Aquarius, well then, for heaven's sake, please can we look? Can we have some kind of, can we talk about it? Can we have a profound talk about it, a deep level review of how we use this, before we crash into before our children, before the next generation crash into something out of control?
So is one way to think about it that we have to see kind of the bad side of this technology, and we have to acknowledge it. So I'm also thinking about like what happened with the French woman in her husband,
Yep.
Yeah, Giselle Pellico, I think was her name.
Yep.
I'm thinking about that. It's almost like is one way to think about it, that we have to, these horrible things have to happen, many of them driven by technology or using technology, so that we can get to the other side, which is where we find these really positive, wonderful ways to use technology.
Yeah, I think we live, I do think we live in very upsettingly dark times. There are some terrible wars and famines and things happening in the world. There's terrible oppression, politics out of control. And I do believe in free will, and Aquarius is a sign of freedom, above all freedom. And the possibility that we are standing on some kind of precipice, and that if we stay in unconsciousness, if we're simply driven by our addictions and by the sort of the left brain and the most superficial levels of gratification, it might be the end of the human race. We might be on that edge. We might go into appalling wars and stuff like that, and climate change, so that is the dark road. And what you're talking about, it feels like this is for me, it is the message of astrology. Come on, folks, raise your vibration. Have a look. And I don't think it's a good idea to do spiritual bypass and not think about these things. I think absolutely, as you say, the first thing is like, oh my God, this is happening. There are people out there who are doing these terrible things on the dark web, or who don't give a damn about young people. They're just feeding them, more Instagram, more whatever. There's corruption, which is a word that goes with Pluto. And so for the human race, and we have 20 years of Pluto. Great. No, it's good, because to do this work of, to do just what you're saying, it's like, bring this to consciousness, think about it, look at it. How do we guide ourselves through it? What is really trying to happen here?
Rebekah, I think what you said earlier about every sign is wants us to evolve, wants to evolve our consciousness, is key to anywhere that any planet goes, but specifically in terms of Pluto and Aquarius, it's you mentioned earlier how we've developed this high degree of technology, but we haven't developed the maturity to be able to use it wisely. And so we often use it destructively and even self-destructively.
Yep.
And so I think the challenge is with any sign is to point us to our inner power, not just our outer power. When the World Wide Web came about, I remember thinking, could this be a foreshadowing of how we will ultimately be able to communicate, without the technology? In other words, telepathically, and, we have faculties we haven't developed, and that are latent in our psyche. And a lot of sages have said that eventually we will be communicating telepathically, and we won't need the technology to do it. But in order to get to that point, we need to develop our own, capacity for compassion and for love. And as you mentioned before, and I think that's the challenge of this time is, can we access the power within ourselves, the real authentic power, not power over, but authentic power, right? So that
Absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely. And the power of technology for good, for
Yeah.
communicating truth. And as you say, maybe as a stage towards developing a real healthy group consciousness.
Yeah.
And I think as Sharon said, it's like the first thing is face what is happening. Don't. I think, you know, I grew up in the 1970s when it seemed that everything seemed very joyful, and it was, you know, the First World War was over, and that was just a big mistake. And in America, you still had Vietnam, but in the UK, we just had the Beatles and pop art, and everything seemed very optimistic. And you know, my generation, we didn't see this coming. We didn't see we didn't see Brexit, and you know, and just with what you're just saying, just this week, you know, with Musk and Zuckerberg coming out, it's like, oh my God, we see it. These guys are like, they have the developmental awareness of a 2-year-old. They're very narcissistic. They don't have empathy. They don't have a moral compass. And this is what we have to contend with. And though absolutely, he was talking about the I can't remember her name in France. You know, it's like, what were you guys thinking? You know, how does this happen? And it does happen, and it does happen, and appalling things are happening right now in the world. And so there's a whole. Well, I'll talk about that later. Let's move on to Neptune, because you're absolutely right, and that's very much the theme of what. Dear Neptune, I love Neptune. It's a very, very spiritual planet. The Neptune is very confused about what happens on planet Earth. You know, well, let me see. It goes with the ocean, with the oneness, the real felt sense, the emotional sense of the oneness of all of life. And these are some of the the Jesus is the wonderful message from Jesus Christ is very much goes with Neptune, of compassion, universal love. You know, not just loving the celebrities and the wealthy people, but loving everybody, and the wounded people and the poor people. Love thy neighbor as thyself. If you ever sort of go into the New Testament and read the words of Jesus, this is not the message that is put out by most of our churches today. But you know, this is this wonderful message of love, which I think more than any other religion you get from Christ, but also the shamanic and mystical, you know, wisdom. This is Neptune. It's like, forget about reality, forget about Capricorn and the banks and the laws and the police. Just go out into nature and, you know, meet with your spirit animal and dance with the moon and so on. This is, you know, going beyond everyday consciousness. Neptune is not good at all at everyday human consciousness. It's not good at getting the money in the bank. It's not good at remembering to take the car to the garage. It's on a different plane, and it's a wonderful plane. It's absolutely inspirational. And if you know, all these things, music, dance, art, poetry, storytelling, these are all the province of Neptune. But it's, you know, it's kind of the exact opposite of Saturn, and it's not, it gets on better with Pluto than with Saturn, but it's not on the planet exactly, or it's in a different dimension. Neptune is a different dimension. For the Greeks, it was Dionysus, who's the Greek god of wine, and he is going into an altered state, getting totally drunk, or meeting with the goddess, or doing a lot of shamanic drumming or something, and leaving everyday consciousness and accessing the next and the next and the next dimension of consciousness. goes very much with the astral plane, where all our stories are born, the imaginal realm. And it's it's an absolutely lovely, it goes with oneness. It's a big heart, huge empathy and compassion. With Neptune, you feel the other person's pain, you feel their joy, you are one with them. And Neptune is all about oneness, that we are one human race, one consciousness. And when I walk into the room and I'm, vibrationally aligned with you, I can feel the joy, I can feel the life force, I can feel the sadness. We are one, and we work as a group. Now, as I've said, Neptune does not do well on planet Earth. And well, in our current state of civilization, one of the archetypes is, but it goes with deception. In fact, maybe coyote is not the best image. It's like, because a Neptunian person is very, very sensitive, they can't just say it like it is. We'll look at Aries in a minute, Mars, like, well, just say it like it is. Neptune doesn't find that easy. They're very, very inclined to go into a pleaser mode. They're very inclined to try, what does the other person want me to say? And a person with a very strong Neptune, very strong emphasis on Pisces, sometimes they don't make it in life. Sometimes they end up in the gutter. They just can't cope. And very often they will turn to lies and deception. They become a bit of a shapeshifter, and they will very often turn to drugs and addictions. Tragically, you get these lovely, well, I don't know, Amy Winehouse, who's a great British artist, really great, pop music, wrote some fantastic songs, beginning of this century, but you could just see she wasn't going to make it. The drugs, in the end, I don't know if she took an overdose or hadn't. Anyway, so these beautiful, sensitive souls who hear the music, who are channeling in the music or the art or the poetry, and they end up dead, or they end up in the gutter because they can't cope with our brutal societies. And they've probably been traumatized in childhood and stuff like that. That's the negative. All these things are deception. Propaganda is, and I'm just thinking about this, I don't know if I've got this in the slide, something about fake news. Oh, thank you. These are some of the stories to go with Neptune. Classic one is the little match girl, and she's just incredibly poor. She's just a little girl. She's got no money. She's out on the streets of Denmark. It's freezing cold. She's sitting on the street corner selling matches. And she's waiting for her daddy to come back. Her daddy's gone away and left her there selling the matches. And the sun sets and it's getting colder and the frost falls. And the dad doesn't come back, and the dad doesn't come back. So she, it's this little girl here. Eventually she just wanders off down the street. And she comes to a house. And she looks through the window and she can see this beautiful room with a roaring fire and a table loaded with Christmas food and a beautiful Christmas tree with presents underneath it. And the door bursts open and in come all these children tumbling in, opening their presents, helping themselves to the food. And she's just pressed up against the window in wonder. Look at it. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it so beautiful? And it always strikes me that she doesn't knock on the door and say, I'm dying here. Can you take me and can I get warm by the fire? Can I have some food? She just looks in wonder. Isn't that lovely? And then she wanders off down the street and she sees a shooting star. And then she sees her grandmother walking towards her down the street. And she realizes her grandmother is the only person who's ever loved her, and leaps into her grandmother's arms, and the grandmother carries her off. And then she says, Grandma, I just saw a shooting star in the sky. And she said, that means that somebody has died, doesn't it? And the grandma says, yes, my dear, it's you that has died, and I am now taking you off to heaven. So this is such a Neptunian story. No question that she's going to pound on the window and say, give me some food. I need a present. I need the fire. I need a family to look after me. She just, is accepting her fate. She's just adrift. She can't cope with the fate that life has dealt her. And the best solution is to die and go back to God. And this story, The Little Mermaid, same thing happens with the Little Mermaid in the Hans Christian Andersen story. She's given the chance to return to being a mermaid after she's sacrificed and got herself feet, so that because she's in love with a prince. And her sisters come and say, look, you have to use this knife and you kill the prince and his new bride, sprinkle the blood on your feet, and you'll be able to come back to be a mermaid. And she won't do that. She doesn't take any kind of vengeance. She leaps into the sea and she becomes a piece of foam. So this is the sort of Neptunian solution, is just go back to God. Throw yourself into the collective, not going to get embroiled in human violence or anything like that. So that's one way of looking at Neptune. That's the little match girl, the snow child, which is a lovely. Neptune's going to enter Aries, and I must say I found it very difficult to think what's going on there. What's that going to be like?
So different. The two energies are so different.
They are so different. They really. I mean, if in your chart, if you have Neptune very strong, then as an astrologer, what I'm looking for is, where have you got Mars? Because Mars is the antidote to Neptune. It's like if the little match girl had a bit of Aries or a bit of Mars, she'd have, pounded on the window and said, hey, what about me? Because that's what Aries does. What about me? And so it's quite tricky, to put these two things together. That here we go. This is what's coming. So the sign of Aries is in many ways a wonderful sign. It's the first sign of the zodiac. It goes with the energy of the spring equinox, goes with birth and eggs and chickens hatching out and all that in the beginning, and planting seeds, and so on. And it's full of the life force. It's a fire sign. The key word is I live. I like, wow, I've incarnated on this planet and I'm alive and I could do things. So, oh boy, if you know anybody with Aries strong in their chart, boy, are they always doing things. They don't find it easy to sit still. They need to be active. They need to be creating. They need to be, and it's ruled by Mars, who is, yes, is the archetype of the warrior, the god of war, but it's action, active. What do we need to do? I got to do something. And I'm acting on my own initiative. It's me. So Neptune, it's all we. What are we feeling? And what would you like to do? And gentle and sharing and all that. And Mars is no me. What do I want? What am I going to do? And they're fired up. Again, it's not a cerebral sign, it's a fire sign. This fire that rises up from the guts, the life force, passion for life, wanting to act. I'm going to do something. I'm going to overcome something. And they have immense courage and love of the truth. And they're natural leaders because they can't wait. They have a lot of impulse, and in the end, just follow me. I know the way, this way. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And if that me energy, when that me energy gets out of control, then we end up with war. I'm just going to talk about this guy, Oko, from the African Yoruba religion, who's the god of agriculture. And the Romans also thought of Aries and Mars as the god of agriculture, because something happens. You know, you plant the seed and you cultivate the plant, and then you get a harvest and something grows. And that need to make something happen and to make something go and to get a result, that is Aries as well. So it's not just about destruction, not at all. However, it does often go into destruction. And we seem to be, well, I don't know if it's worse than it ever was, but anyway, we, you know, we still glorify war. We still think war's the answer. We still like winning. And the thing with Mars is, if Mars Aries energy gets blocked, then what happens is you get this tremendous buildup of life force behind the block, and then it bursts through and will explode through and annihilate half a dozen people immediately. Or in an individual with Aries Mars, when Mars gets blocked, it turns into a temper tantrum, or you hit somebody. And the end of that spectrum is war, where something about me asserting what I want and I think ends up that I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to kill lots of you politically. And I don't know what Neptune is going to be like in Aries, but you know, this is the American Civil War. The last time Neptune entered Aries was the day before the start of the American Civil War. Are we seeing a sort of a bit of a rerun? Are we seeing the next level of a very divided nation? It's something trying to resolve. Who knows? But I think one of my concerns about Neptune in Aries is over here is propaganda. Back with the plutocrats who are running our social media platforms, who are out of control, who, well, they're we have no way of controlling them. They do what they want with their power and their money. And the whole thing of Neptune, that when Neptune gets lost, then it will lie. Because it's very, very strange for us, isn't it? The fake news that has, and false information being everywhere on social media. How many times have I gone on Facebook and thought, oh, that's interesting, and shared an image, and it turns out to be false? Shared some information. No, that's not true. You know, so many lie. Again, maybe this is not new. The Nazis certainly developed propaganda to an amazing art. Maybe the fact that we have social media will protect us to a certain extent from extreme propaganda. But this is certainly, I think, one of the things to worry about with Neptune in Aries, is the fact that Neptune does go with deception, illusion, delusion, fantasy. And if you've got somebody who's got an agenda, some kind of Aries agenda of a wide direction to go, then they will, if they don't have a conscience, then they will exploit the Neptune as a deceiver, as coyote, as a shapeshifter. And my hope is that what is trying to happen with Neptune in Aries is the development of a spiritual warrior. If we think back to the American Civil War, there were a lot of ethics at stake. I know that wasn't all that was happening, but it was about slavery. And similarly with the French Revolution, what was happening in France was not acceptable. The incredible poverty and the oppression of the people by the aristocracy. So we're back in a way with the Aquarian idealism, but that hopefully with the Neptunian compassion. And I, you know, in some ways saying the same thing, Pluto in Aquarius, Neptune in Aries, the need for the spiritual warrior, the need for an expansion of consciousness.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Yeah. One last thing about Neptune and Aries is Neptune rules transcendence, right? And Aries is the I am, you know, my identity, who am I, right? And so with Neptune going into Aries, certainly a version of the spiritual warrior within, you know, to transcend the ego and find who I really am, not right, because Aries can get lost in ego, or if it goes inside with that question, then it can find who they really are. The person can find who they really are.
You're absolutely spot on there, that Aries is kind of just out there looking for a fight or looking for something to do or wanting to win something. Oh, very hero, wanting to be the hero, wanting to be the leader. And the way our patriarchy has developed since Roman times is to glorify that kind of physical courage and physical prowess, and to so that you end up with sometimes in the way of good, but it turns to violence. It's like the fire in the Mars goes all the way down the spectrum until we're killing people and stuff. And what you're saying, Gloria, is if you're in touch with Neptune, if you're in touch, if you really have that sense of divine, our divine nature, of the presence of the divine in every person on the planet, in every creature on the planet, and that we walk, you know, we're accompanied by divine beings, and then, I mean, God, we have to hope that then war stops being the answer. Because you're just killing, if we are all one, which is what Neptune says, that we're not separate. We come from the same divine source. Then when you kill somebody, you're killing yourself. You know, it's a real form of madness, but it's a madness that pervades our society. Boy, do we love it. Boy, do we love war. Boy, do we love heroes. And just as you say, how are we doing for time? Right. Ooh. Right. Quickly through Uranus. Well, in the 1940s, Uranus was in Gemini. And a lot of geniuses, wonderful geniuses, were born with Uranus in Gemini. The Beatles, the pop artists. It was a visionary time when, you know, we came out of the Second World War, creating new politics, new ideals, new art. And this is Uranus. We're talking about Uranus, who's now about to go back into, Uranus has been in Taurus for 7 years, and it's now he's heading back into Gemini, which is a sign of very right. What's this stuff about Pluto? I'm just going to say this: that the Uranus is goes with maths and science and logic, and going back to Plato, it goes with geometry. And the idea that within the physical world, there is something that is not of the physical, it's conceptual. And that ideas, and that, you know, so scientific, I come from a family of scientific materialists. Lots of them are on a spiritual path now, but some of them still think the whole of creation is random, it's luck, there's no vision, there's no divine, it's just, whereas going back to Plato, but going to all the mystics and healers over the centuries, there's something else. There's the physical world, and there's something that underpins the physical world. So Plato's saying that geometry comes before we get the manifest world. And this is a Uranian idea. And I think, yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time. The risk of Uranus is getting super mental and perfectionist. Oh, here you've got your revolutionaries, the seekers of social justice, but above all, freedom and revolution and change. Uranus loves change, and it does go with the World Wide Web and with computing. Let me see, what else have we got? So Uranus in Gemini, Uranus very happy in Gemini, likes the mental, and it's all the risks we've talked about with social media and technology and science going out. Uranus as an archetype, as a planet, is not like Neptune. It doesn't go with compassion, doesn't go with feeling at all. It's visionary. It does go with feeling, but it's Neptune that carries the heartfelt love for humanity. Uranus loves the vision of freedom and of a human race where everybody's fulfilling their creativity and their individual purpose. So I know what I want to say. Yeah, this one. Gemini, the sign of Gemini. It definitely goes with all the technology, goes with keyboards, goes with communication network, goes with mobile phones and cell phones and all that. But the higher level of Gemini is Mercurius as the alchemy of the soul. It's the destiny of human beings to process, to go into the underworld and bring something back from the unconscious. And Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, Mercurius, is the only one of the gods that can go to the underworld and be in the light of consciousness in Olympus. So Mercury, ruler of Gemini, that we can do both, that Mercury is the one that can go into the unconscious with Pluto, go to Pluto's realm and bring something back and synthesize it and make sense of it and write some new words and some new poems and bring us some new spiritual guidance. And this is, this combination of Uranus. Yeah, Uranus in Gemini could be technology going out of control and everything that we've already talked about that we're worried about. But it can be a real raising of consciousness, a real Uranus ruling the higher mind, and Gemini and Mercurius bringing stuff through so that we can actually start doing that work of transformation.
An inner revolution.
Yeah.
A spiritual revolution.
Absolutely. It's a real shift of consciousness. Gemini and Aquarius both go with consciousness, and they both, in Aquarius, definitely Uranus wants to raise consciousness, and Uranus will be very happy in Gemini. I mean, and not wanting to just overlook the risks that we've talked about, technology, but the potential for for people starting to, channeling, like bringing real divine wisdom through. And I'm going to quickly zoom on. Well, I'm going to go through these and then we'll have some questions, right? So this whole idea of the evolution of consciousness that we've done all our, this is Teilhard de Chardin, who was a Jesuit priest, a Christian mystic. He was also, I think he got a Nobel Prize as an archaeologist, as a geologist. Paleontologist. He was on the team that discovered the missing link. So the ideas of Darwin's ideas of evolution were very new in his time. And he's out there in China digging the bones and, and really bringing through evidence that proves evolution. But for him, it's not the biological evolution has come to a stop. Nothing has evolved. There's been no little microbes transforming into fish or whatever for 30,000 years. And he believes in evolution as a scientist, as an award-winning scientist, and he's a fantastically dedicated Christian. He's absolutely dedicated to love, and he feels that where we are now is that the human race is evolving consciousness, that our next step is not to, you know, grow a new limb or straighten us. It's to develop consciousness. And he's not the only one that says that, but he says it very beautifully. Whoops, come on. Yeah. And he talks about the omega point. He says the omega point constantly, well, so the omega point is his idea that there is something calling to us, that God, the divine, that spirit is calling to the human race. Raise your consciousness. More than that, it's summoning us. And he, in the, you know, at some point down the line, he envisages a point where the human race and human consciousness becomes absolutely at one with universal divine consciousness. And he talks about the omega point as this point when we will merge with God. We will re-enter our, you know, but with consciousness, our divine nature and our divine connection with God. And it's as though the omega point, this point in the future, is sending out a magnetic current that is pulling us into that future, to the point where humanity reaches a critical level of maturity and can join with the one true essence of things, the omega point. So this is Teilhard de Chardin saying there is something calling to us, you know, and his idea of cosmogenesis, that we've gone from the biological genesis and now we're into cosmogenesis. Terrified, as many of us are today, that mechanization may bring an end that is much to be dreaded, that we are caught up in the gyrations of some infernal circle. Yet it is from this nightmare that we are awoken by the rays of a universal center of convergence and attraction. We are merged into this magnetic force that pulls our ego ever more rapidly to what lies ahead. A current of love is all at once released to spread over the whole breadth and depth of the world as a fundamental essence which will metamorphose all things. So he's saying we are in that current of love. We are, you know, we in a way, we don't have to do much about it except work on developing our consciousness, expanding consciousness, so we can feel it, that we are being called and that we are being pulled. And
beautiful quote. Wow. That's
yeah. And this is it's a very popular book. I don't know how you pronounce it, Wetico, which is about evil.
Mm.
And he says, the shadows are an expression of the presence of light. The more light there is, the more the darkness becomes activated and visible. So we can learn to understand the manifestation of the dark is a reflection of exactly the opposite, that we are on our right path. On a cloudy day, the sun is in the sky shining, its light is obscured. One way of talking about spiritual practice is that it dispels the clouds that obscure the light. When we recognize evil, we can choose to focus on the good and what lifts and inspires and open the heart, and even that hostile forces have a purpose. They serve to introduce us to the greater power within us. So I came across this book because I've been, you know, very disturbed by the, I didn't think it could get much worse, but it gets worse all the time. By the way our politics is developing, the way, you know, or just things like the pandemic and you know, the impact of that. But very much in our times, like, geez, you know, how can we be having these appalling wars? You know, how can we be having things that look a bit like Nazism happening when we thought we'd done with that? And this idea that it's not a mistake, the shadow, the darkness, if we're afraid that we're being consumed by darkness, then understand that the manifestation of the dark is a reflection of exactly the opposite, that we are on our right path. And there's a lot of new age, of spiritual leaders and astrologers saying oh, this is so great, we're living in this time of transition, and you know, we're all moving, and the Pleiadians are coming, and and for me, in the first place, let's just confront that there's some very, very bad things are happening to human beings in our world. But then this, the hostile, you know, when we encounter the dark, when we encounter the hostile, it introduces us. There's nowhere to go, because for sure, as eggs, our politicians are not doing it. They are not getting us out of this mess. They're getting us into it more and more. But it's what, going back to what you said, Gloria, but these hostile forces serve to introduce us to the greater power within us. There is nowhere else to go except to.
It's turning from the love of power to the power of love, right?
Absolutely. Watch this one. Oh, so this is the Evolutionary Collective is we're learning to become aware of different dimensions, and to me, this is very important for astrologers, for people interested in astrology. It's not just about when is Mercury retrograde or when is the next full moon. It's a different dimension that when an astrologer looks into the horoscope, you are going to a different dimension of consciousness. You're expanding consciousness. When you talk in the language of symbols, you know, you're going to another level. You're going to the astral level, to the imaginal level, or to the level where we are all one. And this thing about groups, which is really important, maybe Pluto in Aquarius is going to be there a long time. Maybe the Aquarius thing, very likely we're in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Maybe we really need to think about Aquarius, but this higher level of Aquarius that is coming into consciousness, that when you know, where two or more are gathered in my name, there shall I be, that when we get into groups, when we have the support of like-minded souls who also are seeking the divine, are seeking to find the divine within, then we really support each other to go to another level of consciousness. Working in groups together with others helps us to develop a quality of consciousness that is more fluid and intimate and supports us to become aware of different dimensions. Our shared consciousness is a portal to unlimited potentials and extraordinary experiences in which cosmic co-creation is possible. And I think the whole co-creation thing is got a very dodgy edge to it, of consumerism. But I think this is another word that goes with Aquarius, is co-creation. And the opposite side of Aquarius is Leo, and that's my personal individual creative path. And I think one of the things that has not been understood about Aquarius is its co-creation. What do we do together? Evolutionary relationships dissolve the separation between us. They allow us to access as a unified field where together we channel cosmic creativity and we bring new gifts to the world. But it's the together. It's what we do when we're together. And of course, it's really important to be doing our personal work and to, God, it's so important. I think the times that we live in, it feels so important to be meditating. And, you know, no big stick, but just to recognize that when you know how to meditate and when you do it every day, it makes a difference. It changes the whole day. If you can find the time and find the will to just settle into stillness, even for 15 minutes, even for 10 minutes, it changes the day. It changes the outcome that you are able to create.
It changes our responses too.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You if you take the trouble to come out of that kind of frantic, anxious, fear-based worry about everything and come into stillness and feel the presence of the divine, then you can stop feeling the hatred and the anxiety and the irritation and the judgment and go back into remembering that we are all one. Sri Aurobindo, the humanity is in the natural process of transitioning from one stage of evolution to another. And that's kind of what we started by saying. Either the human race is going to hell in a handcart, or we are going somewhere else. And, you know, this is what we have to work towards. And there is a power which is the help and inner working is always there with you, always will be. In your darkest hour, it seems hidden, but it never goes away, never will be. It's always there. And that's, you know, meditate on your own, meditate in a group, get to know this power, this wonderful, loving, non-judgmental, totally benign presence that is always with us. And you know, we are living in these challenging times. We will have accomplished a great degree of spiritual realization when we can face the attack of hostile forces with total confidence in our connection to our true nature. We're not that, you know, it's what Laurie was saying about Mars, about Aries and Neptune. It's like we don't have to kill people. We don't have to annihilate somebody. We don't have to overcome somebody. If you can feel that part of you in which there is constant peace, even amidst pain and darkness, and if you can keep it always, that is an immense gain. You know, I certainly don't keep that always every minute of the day, but I'm appreciating more and more the importance of coming back to that place, to finding the stillness where all the aggression and loses its meaning. A web of light has been created around the world to help us make this transition. If that light can be brought into consciousness, then it can travel through the web of connection, awakening centers of consciousness within all of humanity. To me, that is what Aquarius is about. This is the higher level of Aquarius, networks, groups. And, you know, I've often said, you know, the last time I was in America and as I was flying away, I saw this web of light, this network of light that we are building around the world. Every little group, every little individual that is, you know, taking the time to connect with the divine, a little beacon of light goes up and we are, we are connecting. And this is the only thing that will save us. The politicians won't save us. The scientists won't save us. They lack wisdom. They lack emotional intelligence. Our current politicians lack morality. They don't have a moral compass. They are lost. It has to be us. It has to be the Aquarian way. It's got to be the group of people coming together in unity, in love, you know, with Neptune. And with Aries, you know, Neptune, feeling that we are one. We're not separate. Nobody's separate. Every life on this planet matters, including all our crazed leaders and whoever. And then we can channel that, you know, that compassion, that Neptune is feelings. It goes into the heart. You can feel it. It's not a thought. I feel it. I know that every life matters. That no life deserves to be extinguished. For sure, we have to do the Aries thing. We have to say no. We have to say stop. No, you've got to stop the killing. That's not the way. Mm-hmm. We don't stand idly by and think, oh no, there goes another one. But it's the importance of the Uranus vision of the future and the connection of all, and the Neptune, the heart, feeling, you know, the presence of the divine, feeling the divine in every person, even if they don't know it themselves. And this is from Teilhard de Chardin. At the end of his life, the universe became apparent to me as a great rising surge in which all the will to create, all the acceptance of suffering, converge ahead into a single dazzling spearhead. As I look into the future there with ever more assurance, I see the ascent of God. And that is where we, you know, and that in a way has to be the message of astrology. It's not oh my God, you've got Saturn in the 7th, you're doomed. Not at all. It's like, where is the divine? Where is God? Where is my own divinity wanting to shine through this chart? And where is our collective divinity wanting to shine through these big transits that we are having? That's the end.
Oh yes. Oh no, please don't cut out the the
That's
book.
my book. That's my book. Where is it?
Yeah, that's the
my
book.
Available
Beautiful
on
book.
Amazon. I do have the intention that I will write. It's a big book, so I'm thinking that this year I might try and produce a smaller version of it. And where did we begin?
You know, I think that what you say about all the points of light, you know, all the groups coming together, like this one, like, you know,
Absolutely.
many others, right?
Yep.
They're all points of light trying to promote this evolution of consciousness on the planet. There are so many, and we don't hear about them because the media doesn't talk about them. You know, the media just talks about everything that's wrong. And so it's really one of the things that I'm hoping for is with Pluto in Aquarius and with Uranus in Gemini is that communication will become a little more than just, you know, if it bleeds, it leads, right? That we will start to communicate what is important within ourselves and what, you know, trying to establish connection with our own divinity, excuse me, with our own divinity, but also with the acknowledgement that we are all connected. And I think that there is that potential because Aquarius rules technology and Gemini rules media, right? Communication. That there could be a revolution in, you know, what is being communicated on a large scale.
I absolutely think so. You know, this August the 9th, this happy configuration we have, Pluto trining Neptune, Uranus. And I don't think we just get to have the nice bit. You know, Pluto will also be throwing up another crazy something from Elon Musk or whatever. But it's just what you say. Uranus in Gemini is gonna, you know, and it wants freedom. So it doesn't want people to be being oppressed. It doesn't want the plutocracy shutting down everybody's freedom. And Pluto in Aquarius wants transformation. Right. Let's bring this into the light. Do we like this? No, we don't. What do we want? And they are both this Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus here in Gemini, they're both exactly sextiling Neptune. And Neptune is the sort of the, you know, is the point of the arrow in this sort of crossbow of the kite. So something about Neptune in Aries, everything that we've been saying about the compassionate warrior, the truth teller, you know, Aries, and this divine love that's coming through as well, this divine love and creativity. This is a very visionary lineup. You know, Aquarius is a very visionary sign. Uranus is visionary. Neptune is visionary. So at the same time as we are having to deal, and we've got Saturn here as well, with the realities of what is happening on our planet, and we do have to deal with them, and we do need that Mars. Yeah. We need a personal Mars to say, no, I'm not having that. That's not the right way to go. But at the same time, these big outer planets have all moved into air or fire signs. So there's a lot of light and vision coming through. Yeah. And if we do this thing of, you know, we need each other, we need to be meditating, we need to be doing our own personal, you know, connecting with the divine. We need to be meeting others and bringing in the divine in unity kind of thing. And there's a way in which when you're working on that level, that you're working on the level of the energy field, you're not working on the level of the individual human personality. if those energy fields start to line up, if they start to work in harmony, as this chart is, then things will happen that we didn't even see coming, that we didn't even ask for. I mean, good things. That out of alignment, about of an alignment with truth and love and compassion and vision, things can happen that we can't imagine right now. In my lifetime.
Yeah,
When I was a kid, there were no mobile phones. It looks incredible. When you look at perfectly good films from cinema, from the 20th century, they don't have mobile phones. It's nuts.
Right. Rebekah, I think we need to open it up to questions because our time is running out. So if anyone has a question, just raise your hand. Maybe you could stop share, close your screen, great. And that way we can see more people. I'll put on my gallery view, but do click on the raise hand button. And I think we also have some comments in the chat. Let's see. That I will read. Melissa says, my Mars is in 1 Aries, 1 degree of Aries, and I just broke my hip. Oh my goodness. Jan Walsh said, these platforms are opportunities to share information and that can help us evolve. Okay, I'm not sure which platforms. It was early on in the talk. Sharon said, in addition to X and Meta, there is the court overturning net neutrality in the US.
Yep, it's all happening.
Yeah, and Jan Walsh said, I am inviting myself to come to the correct vibrational frequency of my first thought creation, a way to strengthen I am.
And that's Neptune in Aries. That's lovely.
Yeah. And Melissa said, isn't that what those of us with Uranus and Gemini have been growing toward? That is so hopeful for us, the spiritual realization. And thank you for the wonderful information, says Jan.
Yep.
Okay, so anybody, let's see, I see Melissa has her hand up. Melissa, unmute and tell us what you're wanting to know.
Well, I'm so inspired by the entire presentation, obviously, but I was wondering, as you were speaking about Uranus going into Gemini, and so many of us present are probably have their Uranus in Gemini, and I wondered as you were speaking about the optimism of when we were younger and the Beatles and all of that stuff. And are we not maybe responsible, or have we not been? I don't know. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about, I don't know if I'll make it to my Uranus return or not, but we're getting there.
Yeah, yes. I suppose that we are responsible because as a collective, this is what we've created. And you might say individually, well, I didn't vote for this, but nevertheless, this is where we've got to as humanity. If I talk about myself, if I look back to myself in the 20th century, it was a kind of absence of Pluto.
Yeah,
because I was sort of cruising along on the Neptune and the Uranus and all the lovely vision. It's all going to be, it's just going to keep getting better and better and better and keep expanding, and then with Pluto in Capricorn and Pluto, we've had to we've had the rug pulled out from under us. No, fascism is not over. Here it is again. What are we, just as you say, well, here we come Uranus second time. What are we bringing? And I think one thing about the Uranus in Gemini generation that I don't have that, but young people that I know, that are saying, give us the knowledge. Give us the knowledge. If you've been studying astrology for 40 years, pass it on. Don't just go and die and take it all with you. You know, the right, if you meet the right young people, they want to know, they want to hear it, they want the wisdom of the elder, they want the knowledge of the elder, you know, the knowledge of experience. And that, I think, is something for people who are looking at their Uranus return. Is what do I need to share? You know, Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey. You live your life, you go out and you fight the demons, and then you bring back the boon. And this is the boon you've got to, you know, not in an oppressive way, to share.
Yeah, it's an important last stage of the hero journey is the return, where you give back, you know, or you share what you've learned. Alain, you have your hand up too.
Yes, thank you, Gloria. Rebecca, I'm 85, so I just have had my Uranus return. And I'm very interested by the fact that you showed that each of the outer planets, the heavy ones, have a light side and a dark side.
Mhm.
That was for me very, very interesting to note because, and the question is, especially here in the States with the new administration coming in 10 days, you know, how much of the dark side is going to be necessary to go through before there is a consciousness, a regain in consciousness on the part of people, including who have voted for Trump, who knows? So I'm not clear. What do we have? You know, I am a systems thinker, so I know that there is a worse, better behavior, worse, better before behavior that is implied in many, many living things. But so how much of the worst do we need to endure before there is what you were describing in your last slide, this emergence of both individual and collective consciousness?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's like, what will it take?
What will it take
to wake us up on a global scale? It's a question I often ask myself. What will it take?
Yep. I think, not to just keep at it, but it is getting together with like-minded souls, meditating together, doing co-creative things together. This is the Aquarian message. Get with others, because I know from my own experience that if I go through a period where I'm not connecting with like-minded souls, I get a bit lost in the collective, in young people and, you know, the weird values or whatever. And then to reconnect with my friends and younger people who are on this path, and then it's like, oh yes, this is the way, this is the truth. And for me, what's come is a bit of a, this year is you know, in 2025, and perhaps very much with what you're talking about with the advent of Trump, is a sense of urgency. That you can't, you know, that's the daily meditation, and really do find the group and do meditate together, because if we look out into the world, it's a little bit hopeless, because they seem to, you know, there are people out there saying tremendous power and no conscience. They will do anything, they will tell any lie, you know, very lost souls. And so we have to go to the space of miracles with and the only way you can get there is with each other.
So the local, if I may just add, so for instance, I formed a community of elders, but it's virtual, to work on their own regeneration. But I also feel the need at this time to work more locally, so that to involve the body even more than it can be online, for instance.
I think both are important, Alain. To me, both of those are important, because doing it digitally, virtually, is a positive use of technology. It's the highest use, right? But it's also nice to be in community, you know, in the flesh as well.
I'm also observing that I'm the only man here. That's interesting.
Well, that's
a lot about that.
That's not exactly a mistake. You know, that's the times that we're in. It's the rise of the feminine, and you know, we saw with the American election, well, people not ready yet. But that doesn't mean to say we give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's really important.
Yeah.
And but yes. Yeah.
Somebody else, we are just about out of time, but I feel badly to ignore anyone's urgent question. Sharon? Sharon, you have your hand up. Okay.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with the I Ching. I engage with it daily, and several of the hexagrams talk about letting change come about naturally and not forcing things. And I guess I'm just kind of wondering, with everything you've talked about today, how much do we need to keep that in mind? And the other thing it often says is change doesn't happen at the pace we would like or that the ego would like.
Yep,
So just any comments on, and of course you shared at the beginning what these transits are, the duration of them. So just any thoughts on kind of being patient and how much that's needed?
Very much being patient. Yeah, it's not necessarily going to happen overnight or as the pace that you want. But one of the things that I come at this end of my life that I think about astrology, a lot of astrologers give a lot of advice, but actually you don't have to do anything because the planets do it for you. I suppose our job is to raise consciousness and to be willing to look into the dark and bring consciousness to that, and to be doing the work of looking into the light and into the love and bringing consciousness to that. But in my experience, the planets just trundle along, and and Pluto and Aquarius will do its thing no matter what we want. And hopefully the thing that it wants to do is what Sri Aurobindo and Teilhard de Chardin are talking about. That's all we can hope for. The age of Aquarius is 2,000 years. The transit of Pluto through Aquarius is 20 years. However, so I mean, that kind of looks like don't hold your breath. However, I think we live in exceptional times. I think we are learning stuff about co-creation, about group awareness, group consciousness. I think so many people are accessing divine and going to astrology itself. You're going to another dimension of consciousness. Probably in psychotherapy, you're going to another dimension. When you do spirit work, you're expanding your consciousness, and you're reaching to places that are really, really beyond the suffering of this world. And then you come back, and here is the suffering. And somehow it's being able to hold both. And I think that Sri Aurobindo quote is like, and to know that which I think probably everybody here knows, we have this inner place, this divine within us, which can't be hurt. And that doesn't mean to say it's okay to witness people getting very badly hurt in the times that we live in, but to come back to that place, to not get lost in the pain and the suffering. It's somehow to be able to, if it's pretty grim learning if it's a learning, but to be able to witness the darkness and the astonishing things that are happening, and to come back to stillness and center and the divine. And there's a whole trust piece, isn't there? The patience, the trust. This river is going somewhere. The omega point is calling to us. All we have to do is raise our own consciousness as much as we can without being stupid about it and getting ill or anything. And the omega point is calling to us. Neptune is calling to us. Pluto is calling to us, and Uranus, the real gods of change. So we're in a time of change. It may be a rocky road. It sure is very likely to be in the next month. And so it's so important that we find each other and we hold each other's hands and we come back to the stillness. And then we are, and then we create from that place, and we create something else.
Thank you, Rebekah. And one last note from Bernice. Thanks so much for such a rich presentation, so full of wisdom and love, and moving all in closing to the challenge of opening potential of the self.
Yeah.
So she says it well. Thank you, Rebekah. It's been very fortifying for me,
Great.
you know, to have us all on this wavelength of what can we do, and
Yeah.
you know, how can we manifest the higher potential of each of these planets and signs collectively.
Yes. And that's what's being asked of us, and that's what we're doing here.
That's what the challenge is. Yeah. Thank you so much, Rebekah.
Oh,
Thank
pleasure.
you all
Absolutely.
for attending. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Okay.